Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, one of the things that really amuses and fascinates me is how technology is transforming our entire lifestyle. For example, a few years ago, home shopping or getting your groceries delivered to your front door was considered lazy, but now everybody is doing it. Why? Because we want to make the most of our time. Essentially, time is becoming the new currency. How can we be more productive, more efficient? And isn't it time we actually questioned why we wait in line or almost every routine that we perform each day and every week without even questioning it? Especially if it really is true that there is no words more damaging than, but we've always done it this way. Maybe it's time to question that. Speaking of which, I recently came across a company called Filled. Now, they are a gas delivery app in the Bay Area who services fleets nationwide. But from a consumer point of view, you can get a gas ferry that will fill up your car while you watch TV. And from a corporate point of view, it can solve so many problems, including fraud. But rather than judge the concept, I want you to join me for a fascinating conversation today that is a real eye-opener and reveals more problems than you probably realised even existed. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to California so we can speak with Michael Burr from Filled. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Michael. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Well, it's absolutely a pleasure to be on the show, so thank you for having me. So I'm the president and CEO of Filled, and Filled is a company, really a nascent company that's looking to really build what we call the new infrastructure for retail fueling, and it's really about building that last mile of infrastructure for people or commercial businesses fueling their vehicles. And when I talk about fueling, really what I mean is a much broader view of fueling, because fueling can be nowadays anything from gas to electric charging to the potential for hydrogen or propane, or however we look at where energy is going to come from for fueling our cars in the future. And what we look at here at Filled is building a very flexible, a very scalable, a very safe, and a very convenient way for both businesses and consumers to get their vehicles fueled, both today and in the future, in a way that's really not possible today. And there are a few kind of macro trends, Neil, that are going on in the industry that are pretty interesting. And while, the reality is our business is very small in the grand scheme of sort of how people think of getting their cars filled or getting commercial vehicles filled, the reality is that that market is having difficulties. And the reason they're having difficulties is that the number of gas stations, quite frankly, in the U.S., and the trend also occurs sort of across North America and globally as well as in Europe, which is the number of gas stations are disappearing. In the U.S., it's down by 25-30% in the last decade, but when you look at the major metropolitan areas, it's more like 40 to 50%. Most of us can, look around and say, hey, there used to be a petrol station, a gas station on the corner, and it's no longer there. And the reason is that the actual retail gas business is not a very good business to be in. It's challenging, and a lot of the retailers are getting out of those businesses, and they're selling the land because the land is actually worth more than what the gas station's actual business is. Or they're building bigger convenience stores associated with the gas station, and what they're really doing is converting those locations into more convenience store locations than retail fueling. And so it's getting more and more difficult for businesses as well as consumers to actually find a local gas station. And so we look at that as one sort of one trend. And then the other trend is when you look at the way energy for vehicles is going, whether you think that electrification is going to occur 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or 50 years from now, the reality is that it's changing. And there is no infrastructure for that change. There are gas stations across North America, across Europe, but there are no electrical charging stations that exist in that same type of infrastructure. And it's really expensive to build those. And so the challenge that the new market has for new electrified vehicles is, oh my gosh, where's the infrastructure to get these vehicles charged if I'm either a consumer looking to charge my electric car, or whether I have a whole fleet of electric vehicles as a commercial person that I'm looking to charge. That infrastructure just doesn't exist. And when you just look at those two macro trends, that's something that we saw when the company was founded a couple of years ago, which is you really need an infrastructure that can easily expand nationally, internationally. You need one that can handle all types of energy types, whether it's gas, whether it's diesel, whether it's charging, or whether it's propane. And you need one that's really convenient to consumers and to businesses. That's what we are trying to build at Field, right? We're very aware of the size of who we are compared to the market, but in the end, that's our vision as a company, is to make that very, very easy for consumers and businesses in the long term.
Wow, I had no idea about those macro trends you mentioned there. Because I was doing a bit of research on you guys, and I could see that Field is creating those flexible fuel infrastructure so we can live in a world where all forms of energy are more accessible. But like I said, I had no idea about those trends. And for anyone listening that's listening in one of 165 different countries at the moment, can you set the scene and advise exactly how it works? And why it's not possible at the moment, and also maybe offer a typical use case just so listeners can visualize exactly what it is that you're doing there for customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So really what I'll do is let me give you two sort of paths. One is let's talk about the consumer use case. So from a consumer's perspective, really what we see consumers looking for are really like four things, which is, one is nowadays there's an expectation that things need to be more convenient, more on demand. The second is people have a much better understanding of the value of their time. So the rise of either on-demand or scheduled services where I can get groceries delivered or food delivered, that's really about the value of my time. And there's a much greater understanding of that. And then also just the mention I had about the where the retail infrastructure is going. And so the consumer use case is very simple, which is you're downloading an app, or which is either an iOS app or an Android app, and the Field app in either of those platforms. You're simply opening up the app. We show you the price of both regular or premium gas, so we're very transparent in what that would be. You pinpoint the location of the vehicle you want to get filled, whether that's in your driveway at home or in the parking spot at work. And you choose the time you want to get that filled, right? Do I want to get it filled while I'm at work today? Do I want to get filled while I'm at home tonight? And I choose that time slot. And then, quite frankly, that's it. We then give you a quick little view of sort of the summary of what you've signed up for, which is your fill is coming at this time. You're choosing this grade of fuel. It's for this car, and the gas will be at this price point. And then we give you notifications along the way. So, if you've scheduled the fill for tonight while you're asleep, we'll send you a notification saying, hey, tonight before you go to bed, just make sure you pop your gas flap. It's easy to do. Either unlock your car, pop the flap, relock it, or in most cars nowadays, gas flaps don't lock, so you just pop that open. Then when you drive home tonight and you pull into the driveway, we'll actually give you another notification that just pops up and says, hey, your driver's going to come tonight, just a reminder. And then you're literally going to wake up in the morning and you're going to have this first-time experience of, oh my gosh, I have a full tank of gas. Kind of how did that happen? And it's really, really interesting feedback that we get where people kind of go, did the gas fairy come overnight? Like, what literally happened? Because it's a very simple process that we do of filling the gas tank. People are just surprised when it actually happens, right? Which is, how did that happen in the middle of the night where I went to bed, it was empty, and now I've woken up and it's full. So that's literally a typical consumer experience. Now, on the commercial side, it's a little bit different. And on the commercial side, like I'll give you a concrete example of what we do with Mercedes. Daimler has a car sharing service called Car2Go, both here and in Europe. And as an example, we service their Car2Go fleet in Seattle. And what we do there is really through the connected car technology. So that is where the cars, all of the fleet of cars, are actually connected to the cloud in a very secure way. We can access to that cloud and then figure out where each car is located. We can lock and unlock the gas flap as needed. We can determine the fuel level in each of those cars. And our technology platform determines for a route on any given night, which cars need to be filled, where are they, what's the most optimized route for that. And then our drivers go, and while they're out filling that fleet route in Seattle for those Car2Go cars, then they're also filling that consumer route where the consumer placed the order overnight as well. So that what we're able to do is create a very optimized technology platform that allows us to fill both those consumer vehicles as well as those fleet vehicles any given day, any given night in a very optimized way. And hopefully, in the goal of all of this for us is that the consumer and the commercial customer had a very cost-effective, convenient, safe experience of filling that really replaces anything that they had done previously, that allows them to either get time back to do something else or gives them cost back, that allows them to be better optimized in their business.
I feel I've got to ask for you to share a little bit of background on what inspired the creation of Filled. I mean, did founder Scott Hempy run out of fuel on the way home from the office? What's the story behind the journey with the company?
It's close to what you just described.
Really?
So Scott likes to tell this story of he and his wife were driving to LA, and they were running out of gas on the I-5, and Scott was kind of lamenting, like, why can't you do sort of the equivalent of midair refueling that exists for planes? Why doesn't it exist for cars? And, his wife kind of looked at him and said, that's just a really, really stupid idea. Why wouldn't you just simply have somebody come to your house beforehand and fill your car, and then you're set and ready to go? And that really sparked an idea in Scott to really think through, okay, what might that really mean? A couple of other folks really spent time thinking through that idea and looking at, could you do this, right? And it's kind of the things that most people think about in this industry when you look at it, which is, okay, regulations-wise, regulatory, both in the U.S. and globally, can you do this type of thing? Second is, if you could do it, can you do it in a really safe and convenient way? Thirdly, could you do it in a way where you could actually make money? Where, many people look at it going, isn't the gas business not a great business to be in? And when Scott really dug into each of those, you realize that, yes, from a regulatory perspective, if you did it right, you can absolutely be compliant. Second is, if, again, you looked at who you bring on board as drivers, what sort of vehicles you build, you can do it in a very safe way. And then third is, again, if you really look at this in a much broader way than just truck and gas, and you look at it as an optimized technology platform, you can make money on it. And in reality, the retail gas business itself is challenged in how it makes money, but there is money and there is margin and there is economic benefit in fueling and in the gas business. And when you extend that out a little bit, also looking at, wow, how long is that business going to be in place? And what about electrification? And that's where, you really started looking at both the technology platform and what we're building, and Scott thinking about, and this, I think, what was great about his thinking is, it was, for what he was doing, he was thinking very long term about that very simple premise of, hey, get gas before I, go on a trip. to it being much more than that. What if it's not just gas, right? What if it's other types of energy, and how might that work? And, really, we are executing against that vision today. And that's what drives us every single day as we think through what we're doing is how do we realize those really two significant premises, which is how do we ensure that what we do is safe and how do we ensure what we do is convenient? We try to live by that every single day, and we live for our customers' support every single day to do that.
And what about Scott's wife? Is she humble in the fact that the idea was inspired by her?
She's humble in the fact. She's great. She'll occasionally make comments about how she originally thought of the idea and where we should take it. But it's funny how some of those moments are just well, why didn't I think of that? Yeah. It's great that she did, and that Scott was able to take that idea and really run with it.
Now, I've got a feeling that your business is going to split the audience into two camps. One half will say, are people too lazy to refuel their own car now? While the other half will say, it's not about being lazy, it's about making more of your time and making being more efficient. So what kind of responses have you had from people? I'm sure you've done a lot of interviews like this one. What kind of responses have you been getting?
You must be reading some reviews, because that's literally what the response ends up being, right? Which is there's a large part of the audience that looks at what we were doing and responds with the, wow, you know what? I could see this being really convenient. The early feedback we get from the consumer is that it's literally about that convenience and, oh my gosh, I get it filled while at work or overnight, right? The commercial side is about that convenience, but also about it's far more cost effective. What used to take me, an hour to fill a car now takes me sort of 90 seconds to do. So there's that more realization of, wow, this is very convenient. We get that early feedback. The flip is the side of people that just look at it and go, like, we're lazy, right? Mm-hmm. We're getting more, we're moving forward to be a more lazy culture. We have, food that we can get delivered at home. We can get groceries that can get delivered at home. Why would I get gas delivered at home? It just seems to continue that lazy trend. But what's interesting is if we can get over that, sort of that challenge that some people put up there, what they quickly realize is I've just been, stuck in a continuous stressful trend of going to the gas station every 7-8 days because that's what I've been doing for the last 100 years, right? That's what we're trained to do. But when you flip that model, what we find is after the first fill, second fill, then people go, why did I ever go to the gas station? Even those who said, hey, you're being lazy, still it's hard to get people to convert that way because they're so used to that process of going to the gas station. But when they do, it really is an interesting moment. In fact, one of the quotes we always use is the person who came up with it's like the gas ferry coming overnight was actually one of those users who we had reached out to on Facebook who had said, I would never use this, right? It's lazy. We're a lazy culture. And we were able to convert them and get them to use it. And they came back and, kind of really capitulated on their viewpoint and said, actually, I'm wrong, right? This is incredibly convenient. And it's removed that people don't think about the amount of stress that they actually generate when they realize they're running out of gas and they're trying to figure out what to do. And we can just completely remove that.
Fantastic. And you guys are doing brilliantly as well at the moment, because I believe Field has raised $16 million to date, including a $9.65 million round this past August, led by Shea Ventures. I mean, how is that money helping you guys expand? And I suppose it's not just about the money, it's also about the experience and expertise that they bring along with it as well.
Absolutely, right. When you look for investment partners, you're looking for exactly those two things. You're looking for clearly you're looking for investment money, but the second is you're looking for knowledge, experience that can come to the table. And Shea definitely has that. So Shea's been investors in companies like Ring, the consumer security people that were just bought by Amazon. So they brought that really great consumer skill to the table for us. But in the broad sense, the money we raised is really about three things. The first is what I call investing in the here and now. And what that really means is typical early stage company, you're really making trade-offs about where you're putting your money because you're very careful in how you hire, how you spend, et cetera. And you're almost, making some decisions about things being held together, with tiny little threads. And so investing in the here and now is about really starting to hire more people in the right places. So, customer service tools, better operators that can help us really scale our operations, and tools for operations, things that we used to do with an Excel spreadsheet. Now we invest in building real tools because now we've proven that it works. Now we have to scale it. And that really leads to the second point, right? So it's investing in the here and now, but then the second one is about scale. And it's about scaling metros. And so today we are in 4 metros across North America. We're in the Bay Area, we're in Seattle, we're in Portland, and we're in Vancouver, Canada. And by the end of the year, we're going to be in 10 metros, so adding another 6. And those 6 will get added mostly on the East Coast of the U.S. and Canada. And then, in 2019, we'll look to expand beyond those 10, and then also look to expand internationally. And that's really what those dollars are about. And then the third one that we look at is what I call density. And density is about really in the markets that we're in, acquiring more customers, and whether those customers are consumers or whether those customers are commercial fleet businesses. And really, again, that's about investing in sales and sales teams to be able to go after that market. We've got a tremendous amount of incoming demand that we also need to sort through. And so that money has really helped us, invest in the here and now, drive our scale, and then also drive our density.
I am conscious that we have focused quite heavily on the consumer side of things, but I think it's really worth highlighting that you have some pretty big partnerships with companies like Car2Go, Bentley Motors, Volvo, Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Can you tell me more about those partners, how they use your services, and also what problems you solve for them? Because a lot of people listening probably are completely unaware of the kind of challenges that these companies face on a daily basis.
Absolutely. I'll use, Car2Go's this way, Volvo's this way, Enterprise Rent-A-Car also is. There's sort of 2 examples of what we do for them. The first is about fleets. And so one of the interesting, macro trends that's occurring in the industry is when you think about car fleets, they traditionally would, at the end of the day, be parked in large parking lots, right? You'd have, hundreds of cars parked into a parking lot at the end of the day. The drivers would come in, go to that parking lot, and then go about their day. That's really changed over the last, 5 to 10 years, and fleets are now very distributed. And so vehicles are taken home, and that's a challenge for fueling. Right, which is, what do I do in order to get all these vehicles fueled if everybody's not at one single location? So we solve a problem for distributed fleets where those same drivers, that same corporate fleet, can set a service up with us where no matter where the vehicle is, no matter where the driver is, we're able to come in and fuel that vehicle, whether it's during the day or whether it's during the night. And that solves a very big problem for them. The second version of the fleet is examples like the Car2Go, or another partner of ours is BMW Reach Now. And so BMW Reach Now is another fleet of car sharing vehicles, and those vehicles are distributed throughout any city. So they're distributed throughout, Seattle. They're distributed throughout Portland. And again, those vehicles are anywhere. And that's another scenario where in the past, what typically had to happen is companies would hire porters, and those porters would go to a vehicle, they'd open it up, they'd drive it to a gas station, they'd fill it up, and they'd drive it back to the location where it was. That process could typically take 45 minutes. We're able to come in, we're able to find the car remotely through the connected car technology, and we're able to open the gas flap remotely, get in, fill the car in less than 90 seconds, and be gone. So what we've done is we've taken a 45-minute process, turned it into 90 seconds without moving the vehicle. And that's very, one, convenient for them, two, also very cost-effective for that partner. And there's also a third component to it, which no one ever really likes to talk about, but it exists in the industry, which is fraud, which is there's always going to be, unfortunately, that one person or porter that took that vehicle to go get it filled, and while they were at the gas station, they filled their car and their friend's car, as well as the commercial car that they're filling, and then put that car back. So, there's a bit of fraud that exists in the industry that we also then completely remove, because you're no longer putting the onus on a porter or a driver, somebody doesn't really have affiliation with your company. You're taking that away from them and giving it to us, and we're doing it in a very secure, safe, and quick method. So that's really the way the current use case looks for the commercial business and what we do with people, like the Daimler Mercedes car to go, as well as BMW. But there's also a longer term view of what we're doing with these guys. And the example there I'll use is Volvo. Very forward-thinking company, very focused in brand on convenience, really a great partner, where what we've done with them is really create, we call our service internally auto fuel, but the way a consumer experiences with Volvo is Volvo Concierge. And really what this is allowing you as a consumer to set your vehicle up such that you never have to worry about whether your fuel is full or not, or because the car will handle fueling it for you. What I mean by that is the scenario being, you can open up the Volvo Concierge app. You could say, hey, I never want my gas tank to go below a quarter of a tank or go below a half a tank. I want to get my car filled during the night at home or during the day at work, and during these hours. Now that I've set up those parameters, between the Volvo technology cloud and our technology cloud, we're making the decision between the car and us about where and when to fuel your car, and you never need to be involved anymore. So you as a consumer, what you're now experiencing is an experience where you never have to worry about going to the gas station, because your car is always ready to go. And that's really a incredible convenient service that most auto OEMs are looking to provide, and we just see that in some leading providers like Volvo, where they're leading that effort with Volvo Concierge.
So what have been the biggest challenges on your startup journey so far, and how have you had to overcome them? Has there been any real big ones that stand out for you guys there?
I think the big ones are as follows. I could give the typical answer, which is the big ones is how do you scale the company, right? How do you convince people that this is a good idea? I'd be honest in saying I think the most challenging part of what we were doing is really getting people to understand that the fuel business is it really is a very strong business. It very much is a business that's going to be around for a fairly long time. And instead of ignoring, what's going on in that market and just focusing on electrification, there is a massive opportunity to really take the current retail fueling business that's deteriorating and turn it into something that's environmentally friendly, something that's safe, something that's convenient, and something that actually is going to exist for a long time in a much better way than what exists today. And then building electrification on top of that, as we think about the infrastructure that we're building. And I think that's been the most challenging part. The typical answer is when you talk to people about what we do, isn't fueling a terrible business to be in? And the clear answer there is for us is no. But there's a lot of edification that needs to go on in order for us to get through that. I think that's the biggest challenge that we face as we go through our business.
And what's your grand vision for Phil? Do you think this is something that what you can eventually dominate the US and then maybe move that model outside of the US, or right now are you just concentrating on the US there?
Absolutely a global focus, and I think when I sort of get back to the original, I think, question that you asked about how do we look at the business is we do want to be the last mile of infrastructure for vehicle fueling. And again, that fueling being any type of energy source. And that's really what we want to focus on. And for us, that's what we do day to day, focus on in terms of how we're building and what we're building. While we have to take sort of baby steps, and baby steps are, okay, we're going to do it first in, North American market, so US and Canada for now. But at the same time, we have demand today to be in Europe. We certainly have demand to be in Asia as well. But we want to be thoughtful about, we don't want to be everywhere and, stumble everywhere. If we're going to stumble, which we will do as we scale, let's stumble in places where we can learn from it, grow, continue, and learn that way, and be very thoughtful about how we expand. We're building here a business for the long term, and we see the infrastructure that we are building as something that is really needed globally, and that's how we think about our business. Is it's here for the long term, and it's here about something that we want to be very proud of, that we contribute to how people look at the growth of vehicles and the growth of transportation. And it's a lofty goal, but I think that all of us in the company feel very excited by being able to try to achieve that goal.
Huge thanks for coming on the show today. But before I do let you go, could I ask you to remind the listeners of where they can find you guys online, contact a member of your team if they've got any questions, or just want to continue the conversation that we started today?
Yeah, so absolutely. And again, thank you for having me on the show. And for all the listeners, I encourage everybody, we'd love to have you come and try it out. You can go to fild.com, and that's FILLD. And you can go to the iOS or Google Play Store and look for Fild. Again, it's FILLD. Download the app, experience the app. And then, quite frankly, reach out to us. The customer support channel for us is open, and you can reach out to us. And it's just support@fild.com. You can give us feedback. And we'd love for your listeners to try it out. And we'd love to hear from them.
Well, I love everything that you're doing there, because there's a lot of talk at the moment about tech dehumanizing us, making us lazy. But I would argue that we're actually, or many people are actually walking around like robots, just stuck in some kind of routine without questioning it. We need to make more of our time and be more efficient with our time, and maybe question the old way of doing things now and again. And the fact that you're waking people up and making them bust out of that routine, whether they're corporate or consumer users, and doing that through the medium of a gas ferry has got to be a great thing. And I love your tagline there of being the last mile of infrastructure for refueling. So I wish you the best of luck on your journey, and a big thank you for coming on today.
Neil, a pleasure.
I think it's easy to react with quick sound bites such as, are we too lazy to fill up our own car? But there is so much more to Fild than that. And easy to see why they've already raised over $16 million in capital. And I love the idea about creating a flexible fuel infrastructure so we can live in a world where all forms of energy are more accessible. And with a future without gas stations, it looks like they're changing the last mile of the retail fueling space. But it's not just about consumers and the time constraints and fraud implications that huge companies such as Car2Go, Bentley Motors, Volvo and Enterprise Rent-A-Car face each day. That's something that many of us never actually think about. And we're all guilty of reading clickbait headlines and forming an opinion without actually reading the full article. But sometimes you have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture and understand the scale of the problems that you never knew existed and how technology is solving them, and solutions like Fild is doing just that. But what do you think of the issues we raised today, and equally the Fild solution? Tweet me at Neil C. Hughes or email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com. Now, as a non-driving podcast host, much of today's discussion won't affect me, but I'm equally fascinated by how much it has made me aware of so many big problems for both consumers and businesses. So rather than drive off into the sunset, I'm going to walk off into the sunset with my laptop and podcast mic carried in a backpack, one strap, old school style, and say one more time, until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.